A Ford with tinted windows slowly drove into the car wash. It was a sedan with the young woman behind the wheel. The owner of the Ford was Melanie White, and she got that car as a birthday gift from her parents. Since it was only a couple of months, she didn't think of herself as an experienced driver yet. Seeing the young woman behind the wheel, the car detailer smiled understandingly and helped her drive the car in. When Melanie White turned off the engine, the man stepped closer and took the order. The woman got the impression that the car washer was a real professional in his field. After washing the car, the man suggested applying a special polish to it, which was supposed to make it shine like a brand new coin. Are all car wash workers so polite? Or is this man an exception to the rules? The woman caught herself thinking. The entire procedure took less than half an hour. Soon, Melanie's Ford looked new again. Well, that's definitely better, the man thought, satisfied with the work he did. You're a real magician. I was worried that my parents would take away my car for not taking good care of it, Melanie noted with a smile. The stranger simply smiled in response and said, My name is Travis Thompson, miss. Washing cars seems to be my true calling. Melanie looked at the man carefully. Perhaps he was joking? Were there really people who liked spending their days elbow deep in cold water and foam? But when the young woman looked Travis in the eyes, she realized that he was actually serious. Well, that's a strange young man, albeit a handsome one. Melanie caught herself thinking. Apparently, Travis was one of those people who made their friends and acquaintances always feel comfortable around him. And it didn't matter to him where they worked, if they were bankers or car washers, loaders or programmers. After paying Travis, the young woman was about to leave when the man stopped her and asked for her phone number. Melanie looked inquiringly at the car detailer, and then, overcoming her innate timidity, she gave him her cell phone number. At that moment, the woman couldn't explain why she did it, even to herself. Melanie understood that it was highly unlikely that her parents or friends would approve of such a friendship. On the other hand, Travis seemed like a nice man who must have chosen this particular profession due to certain life circumstances. After saying goodbye to Travis, Melanie started the engine and slowly drove out of the car wash. In the depths of her soul, the woman didn't really believe that they would ever meet again. Melanie's parents were wealthy people who worked hard all their life in order to achieve everything they had. Once upon a time, they were ordinary office clerks who only thought about getting by until the next paycheck. But then, Harold and Rachel White turned their attention to a promising business idea and set out on their long road to financial success. Now, the successful business couple had everything that most people of their age could only dream of: a big house, several cars, and a beautiful daughter who became the meaning of their life. Harold and Rachel were very pleased that their daughter decided to follow in their footsteps and chose to study economics in college, intending to inherit their parents' business. However, they were extremely worried that Melanie still didn't have a boyfriend. Sure, they didn't expect her to get married so young, but Harold and Rachel would have liked to see their daughter start dating some wealthy young man. They really didn't like Melanie's friends, who were all surrounded by wealth and luxury from an early age, and therefore all they knew was how to spend their parents' money, without ever thinking about how hard they had to work to earn it. Two of her friends, Megan and Darcy, stood out in particular among the group, since they considered Melanie their best friend and almost like a sister. It was their friendship that worried Harold and Rachel the most, since the parents feared that they would be a very bad influence on their daughter. Meanwhile, Melanie returned from the car wash and already made plans to have dinner with Megan and Darcy at a cozy cafe downtown. The young women wanted to share their news and discuss their plans for the weekend. They hadn't seen each other for almost a week, and they all had something to tell one another. However, on their way to the cafe, Melanie already knew what they would want to talk about. They would most likely talk about their boyfriends and everything to do with them. Of course, deep down, Melanie wasn't all that enthusiastic about these conversations, but she took their friendship very seriously and therefore prepared herself to be a good listener. Everything turned out just as Melanie expected. As soon as she sat down at the table, Megan started telling her friends about the young man she met at a nightclub the night before. Darcy interrupted her from time to time, as she also wanted to talk about her romantic adventures. At some point, Melanie caught herself thinking that she was very bored and wanted to go home. But suddenly, the phone in Melanie's purse started vibrating, giving her an opportunity to take a break from listening to her friends while she answered the call. To the great surprise of the young woman, the caller turned out to be none other than the young man from the car wash. "Travis?" Melanie exclaimed in surprise. "Yes, it's me. Listen, how would you feel about getting together today? We could have dinner or watch a movie," Travis asked hopefully. At that moment, Melanie accidentally clicked on the speakerphone button, and her conversation immediately became public. "I'm sorry, Travis. I don't think I can make it today," Melanie began uncertainly. At that moment, Megan snatched the phone from her friend's hand, ran away from their table, and started talking to Travis, gesticulating wildly. Melanie wanted to stop her friend, but Darcy gently pushed her away. "Don't worry, friend. It'll be fine." Meanwhile, Megan ended the conversation and gave Melanie her phone back, feeling very proud of herself. "That's it. Your boyfriend will be here in half an hour," the young woman said with a smile. "What do you mean here?" Melanie asked, surprised. Megan and Darcy looked at each other and started laughing without even saying a single word. When the fun finally subsided, Megan asked, "By the way, who is he? The son of some banker or an oil man, probably?" At that moment, Megan realized that the last thing she wanted to do was give an honest answer to that question. However, being unable to resist the pressure from her friends, she gave in and told them everything as it was. "What? Are you out of your mind? A car detailer?" Darcy exclaimed. "Yeah, I definitely didn't expect this from you," Megan added. Melanie never felt so uncomfortable in her entire life. At that moment, the door opened and Travis came into the cafe. He was dressed in faded jeans, a hooded sweatshirt, and old sneakers. He immediately saw the three beautiful young women sitting at the table and greeted them from a distance. "Well, now we'll have to spend the rest of our evening in the company of a car washer," Darcy said, contemptuously twisting her lips. Her words made Melanie turn beet red. The poor woman was ready to sink into the ground. In the meantime, Travis sat down at the table as if nothing had happened and asked for the waitress to come over. Then he ordered everyone a huge serving of ice cream. "I wonder if he'll pay for it himself or add it to our check," Megan whispered in Darcy's ear. Of course, as soon as Travis sat down at the table, he immediately felt a wave of negativity emanating from Melanie's friends. Melanie and Darcy literally burned through the man with their eyes and didn't even attempt to hide their contempt, openly mocking him. It was only Melanie who treated the man with due respect from the very first minutes. Meanwhile, Darcy and Megan giggled vilely and were ready to openly call the man a beggar. At some point, Melanie even started feeling sorry for Travis, who ended up in this awful company instead of doing something useful with his time. The evening finally came to an end, and the young people started getting ready to go home. To everyone's surprise, Travis covered the check himself and even left the waitress a tip of at least $100. It was then that the women started suspecting that something was off. Being just a car detailer, Travis obviously couldn't afford to throw money around like that. But when they got outside, they saw that Travis was heading towards a huge Chevrolet SUV parked outside. Having opened the door, he gestured for Melanie to get inside the passenger seat. The woman didn't hesitate long, and a couple of minutes later, she was already sitting inside the expensive car. Travis said a rather cold goodbye to her friends and started the engine. It was only when they had driven a far distance away from the cafe that Megan dared to ask the question that worried her. "Where did you get this car, Travis? Who are you really?" Continuing to concentrate on the road, the man smiled and said, "I really do make a living off washing cars. Except I own the car wash. Actually, I also own a chain of car shops around the city and a couple of gas stations. And today, I was simply filling in for one of my employees who called in sick. And that's when you saw me. Only now did Melanie realize how wrong she was in her assumptions. Thinking that Travis was an ordinary car washer, she didn't even allow the thought that things might turn out to be completely different from what they seemed at first glance. As it turned out, the man grew up in an orphanage, and thus, everything he now had, he achieved through nothing else but his own hard work. Listening to Travis's story about his difficult childhood, Melanie experienced an inexplicable surge of sympathy for this nice man who didn't boast of his wealth and continued to be a good person in any situation. "Please forgive me and my friends, Travis. We didn't know what we were doing," the woman whispered, having a hard time holding back her tears. But the young businessman didn't hold a grudge against her. Travis had long been accustomed to the fact that people judged him by his appearance, failing to see the kind of person he really was. After that memorable dinner in the cafe, Travis and Melanie started dating, and 6 months later, they got engaged. Having learned that their friend's fiancé wasn't really a car detailer, Megan and Darcy apologized and asked him not to be angry with them. But Travis and Melanie didn't need universal recognition. Enjoying each other's company, they made plans for the future and believed that the love in their hearts would be enough to make them happy.